Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at 11 starts now.
Hands up, don't shoot stuff.
A powerful and move-in drive-in rally tonight for Black Lives Matters in West Bloomfield. We'll bring you to the scene with a night cam.
After tomorrow, it is all 90-degree heat past the 4th of July holiday, but are we going to be getting storms with our fireworks?
We're going to begin, though, with the state reporting the number of new cases jumping again. Today's total 373, second highest total that we've seen this month, and the 7th straight day of an upward trend in cases.
It's a trend Governor Gretchen Whitmer is very concerned about, especially with a holiday weekend upon us. Jason Colthorpe is live with what the plan is going forward. Jason.
Kim, she's going to be watching what happens over the next 24 to 48 hours to see if possibly some rules may have to come back into play, because the governor obviously concerned, trying to make sure that these few hundred cases we're seeing in Michigan don't absolutely skyrocket into tens of thousands of cases that they're seeing in Florida, Texas, and California. In the meantime, she's also rolling out what she has in mind for students come this fall.
We can't let our guard down. We can and we must get this under control now.
Pointing to 7 straight days of spikes in COVID cases in Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer saying Tuesday that moving the state to phase 5 was off the table, and she's urging people to take it easy this 4th of July.
We cannot play fast and loose with the rules. I'm hopeful that this weekend, Michiganders will choose to celebrate the 4th of July safely, with regard for their neighbors and their families.
She's also planning on students physically returning to school in the fall. With the help of a 25-member advisory council and $256 million new budget dollars from her Capitol colleagues, she's supplying districts with PPE, staff, and technology to be ready for anything.
Every school district must develop 3 plans. A phase 3 plan that is fully remote, a phase 4 plan with a very strict and required protocols, and phase 5 plan with a more relaxed protocols and additional flexibility. These requirements and recommendations will not always be easy to implement, but they're absolutely necessary.
We actually had a plan that's very similar already in place, and so we were excited to see what she shared today.
Leaders from districts across the state are already reacting.
We're ready and prepared to do exactly what she said, face masks, social distancing, smaller class sizes, all those things. So it was good to see that plan.
West Bloomfield, by the way, actually getting a lot of applications from families to move their kids to exclusive online learning. We'll have to see how that ends up playing out statewide. The other headline, by the way, as we stand in front of the Cass Tech football field, is the governor is calling on the MHSAA to switch the sports seasons, moving football to the spring and some of the more individual sports like golf, tennis, and track to the fall, to kind of help with the COVID crisis. That's a decision that's completely up to the MHSAA, and she expects them to make a decision by the end of July. Back to you.
I would bet there's going to be some blowback on that, Jason. We would expect.
Yeah, we're already getting some, by the way, Devin, including from Dr. Nikolai Vitti, head of the superintendent here in Detroit. He tweeted about this, and I want to show it to you and read it to you. Regarding the sports seasons, he says, we've already engaged many of our high school principals, ADs, and football coaches, and I stand with them to state the association should not flip the fall and spring sports. Football should be played this fall, and we believe the association will eventually agree with our position. So there's that. And then he also tweeted about the governor's plan overall, and he said, I appreciate the Return to Learn task force recommendations. DPSCD has already developed and vetted our reopening plan. We'll make a few adjustments to align with the requirements to submit our plan in advance of the deadline. And if that language sounds like the two are butting heads a little bit, it's not the first time we've heard that when it comes to how each see the plan going forward to get kids back to learning. So we'll have to see how that goes from here too as well.
We just have to wait and see what a lot is going to be decided over what we see happen in the state over this next month as well. All right, Jason, in the number of cases, because state's not going to be moving to phase 5 before the 4th of July weekend. The governor did, though, ease visitor restrictions on nursing homes and other long-term care facilities.
Exceptions can now be made for visits with residents who are in serious or critical condition or hospice care, or for those who assist healthier residents with activities of daily living. At the national level, 16 states seeing an uptick in cases are starting to halt or roll back reopenings, such as in Colorado, where the governor there is ordering all bars and nightclubs that don't provide food to shut down for 30 days.
A Black Lives Matter rally in West Bloomfield tonight, but this event did not include marching, as we've seen in so many other places.
Instead, everyone stayed inside their cars. Our Tim Pamplin was there for the drive-in protest.
People started arriving at the West Bloomfield High School parking lot. Wasn't too long before several hundred vehicles were in place for this Black Lives Matters rally. It was all the idea of West Bloomfield High School alum Brooke Taylor.
This is Drive-In for Justice, and I was inspired to plan this after going to a church service I was driving.
The event broadcast on the Lakes 89.3 FM, so people in their cars could tune in.
We've been dealing with problems from centuries. It seems like we never progressed together, you see. How come we never heard about Juneteenth? Probably because we never got taught our own history.
The attendees encouraged to honk their horns in approval.
I have a 90-year-old grandmother at home, and I know she can't protest because of COVID, so I really wanted to bring the protest kind of to her in a safe way. I wanted to account for the people who are most susceptible to COVID-19.
Hands up, don't shoot, stop. I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Brianna and Floyd, say the name, say the name.
So from a drive-in church service in Detroit to a West Bloomfield High School parking lot, a young lady with a big idea.
At first, in my head, I was like, this is so crazy. I can't do this. And I talked to my counselor, and she was like, no, email the principal. So I emailed him, and from then, it was just, let's do it. Let's get it on the roll.
I don't think this is the last we've heard of Brooke Taylor. She told me if she could get through to just one person, she's done her job. That's the scene in West Bloomfield tonight with the night cam. Tim Pamplin, Local 4.
Okay, Tim, we appreciate that. Let's check back in with Ben, who has a long stretch of 90-degree days in the forecast here, Ben.
Yeah, Kim, a lot of heat, and that 87, even though it was toasty today, that's the coolest number that we have going forward. Beyond that, it is all kinds of heat. In fact, we have got 8 straight days through the entire forecast. At least that's up to the 10 days that we put on clickondetroit.com. The last time we did that more than 30 years ago, back in July of 1987. We put together a string of 8 days. Will it go on beyond that? We'll talk about that, and if we're going to wedge some thunderstorms into that mix as well. All that in a few minutes, guys.
All right, Ben. It's been nearly 7 months since that toxic green ooze started leaking along I-696 in Oakland County. The ooze later linked to the electroplating services building along 10 Mile Road. Tonight, Priya Mann shows us what's now being done to make sure the source of that green ooze is cleaned up for good.
Last December, Eagle asked the EPA for help when hexavalent chromium seeped onto the shoulder of 696. Well, now they're starting a new phase of treatment, which is more of a long-term approach.
We want to get to the core of this contamination. And I know that the residents, the neighboring businesses, I mean, they really want to carry on. We want to make that place as safe as we can.
The goal of the injection treatment is to address the groundwater contamination as it migrates from the electroplating services building.
It's treating the contamination, where it's at underneath the ground. It doesn't take it out. It doesn't expose it to the air or handling by humans. It's really a safer technique that we can keep in place for a long time.
Treatment chemicals will be injected into the soil between the building and the service drive, as well as the top of the I-696 embankment. Experts say as groundwater migrates through the soil, it will flow through the injection areas and the contaminants will be treated in place.
This really is taking us toward the final step, which is removing all the source of that contaminant.
So far, the EPA has collected more than 260,000 gallons of contaminated groundwater and hauled it off-site for treatment and disposal.
We've had the idea that the sump pumps were not sustainable long-term. And right now, it's a great time to really put something new in place. It's warm out, and we didn't really want this to go any longer than it had to.
And the EPA expects to transfer the site to Eagle at the end of the year so they can maintain the new treatment system, and it's estimated those materials will need to be replaced every 3 to 5 years. In Madison Heights, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
Okay, Priya. A search is underway tonight for the gunman who opened fire at an off-duty Taylor police officer on I-94. State police say those shots were fired at the off-duty police officer's car just before 4:30 p.m. on the eastbound lanes. Nobody was hurt. Investigators say they're looking for a red car that exited at Livernois shortly after that shooting. Two families forced from their homes tonight by a raging fire in Shelby Township. This is the aftermath from a house fire on Cone Drive near 21 Mile and Shaner. You can see one of the homes is badly damaged. The garage is gutted. The house next door has some damage to the siding. The fire department says nobody was hurt.
Members of the United Auto Workers met with federal prosecutors today in the first step to bringing reform to the union. The meeting between Union President Rory Gamble and U.S. Attorney Matthew Schneider comes after 13 convictions of union leaders during that wide-ranging corruption scandal. The UAW says a number of reform options were discussed during the meeting, including possible independent oversight of future labor agreements, but more talks are planned in the coming weeks.
Still ahead, cutting the cord is getting more expensive.
Yes, the price hike just announced by one of the biggest competitors to cable coming up.
A car goes airborne, crashing on top of several vehicles at a dealership. What happened moments after that has investigators baffled.
But first, a new type of swine flu discovered in China, now infecting humans. What scientists here at home are saying about the virus and the potential for person-to-person spread.